Okay, today we're going to do just finished off with the Mishnah of the bottom of Chozayin Amud Aleph, Chavches Amud Aleph, sorry. We're starting with the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, just at the bottom of Chavches Amud Aleph, the Mishnah says, Chametz Shonachri Sha'avar Olav Pesach. If you have a chametz of a goy that was left in his house on Pesach, Mutter Ba'ano, you're able to eat it. You're able to eat the chametz after Pesach, meaning you could go and shop in a shop that doesn't belong, shop in a store that doesn't belong to a yid, and buy chametz after Pesach, because there's no isser for chametz that belongs to a guy after Pesach. But v'sha, you saw if the chametz belonged to a yid, let's say you have a Jewish shop, or you find chametz in your house, which went over Pesach, also by now you cannot have any benefit after Pesach from that chametz. Shenama says in Pesach it says that you should not have any leaven inside your house. So since you had leaven inside your house, you cannot have, we're going to see soon, that you cannot have any benefit from that chametz. Okay, so we have a Mishnah that tells us chametz of a goy after Pesach is mutter, chametz of a yid after Pesach is us. Says the Gemara, man must listen who's the Mishnah go according to. Rabbi Yehuda, the Mishnah doesn't go according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon, the Mishnah doesn't go according to Rabbi Shimon either. The Mishnah doesn't go according to Rabbi Yisrael either. What are these opinions of Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yisrael? What are we talking about? Tanya, because learn no brayso chametz. If you have chametz, bein lifnei zmanei, whether the chametz is before the time, whether chametz, if you have chametz before the time that's us to eat, bein la'achaz zmanei, over balav. Say chametz before Pesach comes in, meaning from on erev Pesach, which you learn on erev Pesach is a iser lav, is a aser to eat chametz, but it's still not aser kares. So if you eat chametz then, and you eat chametz after Pesach, which went over Pesach, over all of the lav, you're over on a lav. If you eat it during Pesach, over all of the lav, the kares, then you're over on a lav and kares. So this is the opinion of Yehuda, the first opinion that we're mentioning over here, that chametz on erev Pesach and chametz after Pesach are aser in a lav. It's like it's aser. It's aser, one of the isuri lavin. If on Pesach you chayav kares, starting on the top of Chavches Amud base. That's one opinion. Shimon says no. Chametz lifnei zmanei or lachaz zmanei. Chametz before its time and after its time. Meaning on erev Pesach and after Pesach in a vala b'lei klum. You're not even anything. You could eat the chametz, no problem. There's zmanei if you chametz on Pesach. We have two completely conflicting opinions between Rabbi Yehuda and Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda says that chametz after Pesach is aser, meaning chametz that was there during the duration of Pesach is aser and alav. If Shimon says it's not even aser, you can eat it, no problem. Says the Brisa further, the time that chametz is aser to eat, aser now you cannot have any benefit from it. Who does that go according to? Asam, Tanakam, that goes according to Tanakam, meaning according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Brisa says that according to Rabbi Yehuda, that chametz is aser before its time, that you can't eat chametz on erev Pesach, and you can't eat chametz after Pesach. So the chametz is not only aser to eat, but it's also aser to have benefit. Okay, so we have two opinions. We have Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, and we have Rabbi Shimon's opinion. That's the Brite's third opinion. Rabbi Yisrael says, asking yourself, hey, chametz aser ba'ana kol shiva? You think chametz is aser ba'ana all the days of Pesach? Meaning, according to Rabbi Yisrael, chametz is mutter to have benefit from it even on Pesach. So we have three opinions. The Yehuda's opinion is most stringent. The Yehuda says that chametz is aser. You can't have benefit from chametz which was there in your house even on erev Pesach, and after Pesach also. If the chametz was there in your house during the duration of Pesach, you cannot have benefit from that chametz. It's called chametz she'avar olav Pesach. Chametz she'avar olav Pesach is aser ba'ana according to Yehuda. That's the second opinion. Is Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says it's completely mutter ba'ana. There's no problem in having chametz in having benefit from chametz that was there during the duration of Pesach. The third opinion, which is the most lenient opinion, it says even on Pesach itself, you could take the chametz and sell the chametz and have benefit from it. Says the Gemara. Now the Gemara gets, we're going to come back to our Mishnah soon. Now the Gemara just gets a bit sidetracked in the details of the Brisa of these three opinions. Says the Gemara, how do you know that if someone eats chametz on erev Pesach after chatzos, that you're ever in a leisase? Shenama says in Pasuk leisachal olav chametz. It says regarding the Korban Pesach that do not eat Korban Pesach, do not bring the Korban Pesach if you still have. Different Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is, we just going back to the Brisa. The Brisa said Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is you cannot have benefit and you cannot eat chametz on erev Pesach. As you know, because it says in Pasuk leisachal olav chametz, so when you bring the Korban Pesach, do not eat chametz. Amar Rabbi Shimon told him, how can you say that? Again, Rabbi Shimon is the opinion that holds that you could have benefit from chametz on Erev Pesach. How can you say that you kind of benefit from chametz on Erev Pesach? Well, like Farnama says on the pasuk, the pasuk before that says, "Lo yisechal olav chametz." Don't eat chametz. Shivas yom teichal olav matzis. Eat matzah 7 days. From the fact that the Gemara says, the pasuk before says, don't eat chametz when you have matzah. What does it mean? Don't eat chametz. It means when chametz. When you have matzah, then you can't eat chametz. If you're not muchayev to matzah yet, then you don't have to get you don't have isur to chametz. So we have already more explaining the source of Rabbi Shimon's opinion, Rabbi's opinion. Rabbi says that before chametz, even before Pesach, it's us that benefit from the chametz. How do we know? Because it says in pasuk leisech all of chametz, do not eat chametz to the Korban Pesach. Rabbi Shimon argues, and Rabbi Shimon says no, that pasuk is not talking about the Korban Pesach. That pasuk is talking about that when you have matzah, don't eat chametz. So when the matzah only starts with Pesach by night. So according to Rabbi Shimon, the chametz only starts at Pesach by night. Says the Gemara, what's the reason of Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda says that before Pesach is Aser, and after Pesach chametz is also Aser. So Rabbi Yehuda says Tafsir Krak Sivi, the sleep sukkim regarding the chametz, 3 surim, 3 times the term mentioned this of chametz. Number 1, it says Lo Ya'acha chametz, don't chametz. Another pasuk says don't have any leaven of Pesach. Another pasuk says leisech all of chametz. So we have 3 psukim that speak about the issue of chametz. So Rabbi Yehuda says very simple. The first pasuk is talking about lifnei zman. The first pasuk is talking about eating chametz before its time, meaning on Erev Pesach. The second pasuk is talking about lachas maneh, eating chametz after Pesach. The third pasuk, the third pasuk is talking about eating chametz. We have 3 psukim teaches us 3 different times. The first pasuk is talking about don't eat chametz on Erev Pesach. Second pasuk is telling you don't eat chametz after Pesach, meaning the chametz through the duration of Pesach. And the third pasuk is teaching us don't eat chametz on Pesach itself. That's where Rabbi Yehuda learns his opinion that it's also to eat chametz. Rabbi Shimon, what does Rabbi Shimon do with these 3 psukim? Rabbi Shimon says that after Pesach chametz is mutter. So why does it say 3 times the Torah don't eat chametz? So he says the first pasuk is to teach you that during Pesach you can't eat chametz. The kol machmetzes, and the second pasuk that of kol machmetzes, the second pasuk when Torah says don't have any leaven, to teach us a new din. What's the din? We learn in the Brisa, chametz means that it became leaven by itself. When something became leaven by itself. How do we know that if dough became leaven because someone else made it leaven, meaning you didn't make it leaven, it became chametz by itself. It was never, again, there's nowadays we cook bread a bit differently. We still have this idea of yeast to make something rise. Either you could make something rise, you could put a riser in it, either yeast or sourdough stock. These things are certain things that make the dough rise, or sometimes it can rise by itself. So one pasuk is to teach you So one pasuk can teach you that the chametz which you made it is leaven, you made it chametz is aser. The second pasuk teaching you not only if you made the chametz, even if it became chametz by itself. So there's another pasuk that says kol machmetz is any chametz don't eat. And the third pasuk, the third time it doesn't tell you about the isur chametz. Lo ya'acha chametz in vaylik l'tani reisek. We learn to teach us a new din that basically he says minayin the Pesach mitzrayim she'en chimutzei neigal yemechad. How do we know that in the current Pesach they brought in Mitzrayim chametz, even though it's don't eat chametz over there, but it was only for 1 day. Meaning how do you know Mitzrayim Yidden were only asked to eat chametz 1 day? Says in the pasuk don't eat chametz. And the next pasuk says today you're going out. So the pasuk, since the pasuk connects not eating chametz and you're going out today, is mashma that the issur of chametz in Mitzrayim was only for 1 day. So we have the 2 opinions of Rabbi Yehuda and Pesach. Rabbi Yehuda says that after Pesach and before Pesach is also the chametz and have benefit from chametz, and basically says afterwards and before Pesach is mutter to have benefit from chametz. Rabbi Yehuda's marker is from the 3 psukim, and the Shimon uses these 3 psukim for different dinim that we learn now. And one needs to teach us that chametz by itself is also aser, and second part is to teach us that in Mitzrayim Pesach was only for 1 day. Says the Gemara. So if Shimon learns that from these 3 psukim, where does Rabbi Yehuda know these dinim from? Rabbi Yehuda used these 3 psukim to teach us before chametz and after before Pesach and after Pesach. How does Rabbi Yehuda learn now the dinim that Rabbi Shimon just mentioned? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda machmas davar achim midal. How does Rabbi Yehuda know that if you did make something chametz came chametz by itself, it's still us or midinafka rachmana? So he answers from that which Torah says b'lashon machmetzes, and that which Torah says any leaven machmetzes. But Torah doesn't say kol chametz v'seichel. Torah says kol machmetzes. Machmetzes means that it's an interesting way of describing chametz. So that which, since Torah says machmetzes, is to teach us that any type of chametz is us. And the second din of Yitzhak really that in Mitzrayim was only for one day. The Rabbi Yitzhak really minale. How did you know the din of Rabbi Yitzhak really? So there's two answers. Number one, E by Sema in the Samachle and Hayim. Very simple. I could just say that since it says Hayim in the pasuk, so Hayim means today. E by Sema. Another way of answering the question is Smuch and Leidarish. Yehuda doesn't agree with this din. He doesn't agree that in Mitzrayim Pesach was only for one day. He says that Chametz was also for 7 days. He says in the pasuk Hayom. Hayom means a separate thing. It's not derish. The fact that it says close to each other, then it indicates something. B'chal is a big machlekes. If we're derish smuchim or not smuchim. If you have one pasuk and you have another pasuk, you're not talking about the same thing, but since they're said together, so the machlekes are known whether we connect both pasukim together or not. Which is a good example of this machlekes. Reb Shimon holds since it says in pasuk kol chametz leisech, don't eat any chametz mitzrayim, and the next pasuk is hayom atam yetzim, you're going out today. So since it's smuchim, they're close to each other. So we don't eat chametz hayom also for today, only for one day. If you know the argues, and Peter says no, smuchim leidarish, that which are next to each other doesn't mean that they have a connection to each other, and therefore chametz is taken only for one day. Okay. Now the word goes back to the words of Yehuda. Carrying on explaining machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. We learned before. We just mentioned before. We said, how do we know that if you chametz on Erev Pesach after Chatzos, you're over on Alei Saseh? Shenama says in pasuk about checking the Korban Pesach. Do not eat chametz on the Korban Pesach. David of Yehuda, that's Yehuda's opinion. Amar Reb Shimon answered him, can you say such a thing? It says in the pasuk that don't eat chametz together with matzahs. It says that which Torah said don't eat chametz is that when you have matzahs. It says what does the Yehuda answer to that to that time? Shimon has a good time. We didn't answer what the Yehuda answered. So it says answers the Gemara. Will tell you that pasuk which tells you that you can't eat chametz when you have matzah is to teach us even for nowadays. The first pasuk is tell you don't eat chametz with Korban Pesach. Well, nowadays we don't have a Korban Pesach. Well, maybe nowadays we can only start eating chametz. Maybe nowadays we can only start eating chametz. We should only stop eating chametz by night. That's what the second pasuk says. Chametz to matzah, meaning just like nowadays we have matzah, so even though we don't have Korban Pesach, this of chametz still applies early on during the day. Says the Gemara of Reb Shimon. How does the Shimon know this chiyuv still applies today? If Reb Shimon says it's only talking about matzah, if it's only talking about matzah, we don't have a. How does he know that when you don't have a Korban Pesach, we should have Yisur chametz? So nafkalan, so he learns it be'erev teichlu. It says in the pasuk be'erev teichlu, meaning in the evening. The pasuk doesn't say only when you have a Korban Pesach you should stop eating chametz. It says be'erev teichlu matzah. You should eat matzah and stop eating chametz by night. So therefore, since it says the pasuk by night, it specify what day, what night. Doesn't say if you have a Korban Pesach or you don't have a Korban Pesach. Torah is very clear: by night don't eat chametz, and night of Pesach. So therefore, he learns out from that pasuk that that you should not eat chametz even when you don't have a Korban Pesach. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, learns chiyuv of eating matzah nowadays from the pasuk Shila Shem Techal Matzahs. What does he do with this pasuk of Be'erev Teichel Matzahs? He uses it for a special case of tamei. If you have someone who's tamei, who's far away from the Beis Hamikdash, so he's not for Korban Pesach. Since he's not eating Korban Pesach, matzah mar and maybe we shouldn't eat matzah mar either, because it says in pasuk them together. Therefore, I have an extra pasuk to teach us Be'erev Teichel Matzahs. Don't eat chametz. The Be'erev Teichel Matzahs by night you should eat matzahs, even though you don't have a Korban Pesach. You're still chayiv to eat matzah. But Reb Shimon, according to Reb Shimon, what does he do with How does he know that someone who's tamei and he's far away from this mikdash is still chayiv to eat matzah? So he learns out from tamei. He doesn't need a proof for that. Why? He's no different than someone who doesn't have a bris and a ben necher. That are not chayiv in a Korban Pesach. The Chsev says in the pasuk, says in the pasuk, Arel should not eat the Korban Pesach. He shouldn't eat the Korban Pesach. But he eats matzah. So since Terry already said by Arel, someone doesn't have a bris, he's parted from eating Korban Pesach. He's parted from the Korban Pesach, but he's still chayiv in matzah. So too, anyone who's parted from Korban Pesach is still chayiv in matzah. I see. So why does Yehuda need a special pasuk to tell us? Going back to Yehuda, why does Yehuda need a special pasuk to tell us that someone who's tamei is still chayiv to matzah? But Yehuda, what does the Yehuda say? So it says very simple. Ksiv b'hai. We need Torah to tell you in both cases. We have one pasuk to teach you by order by someone who doesn't have a bris that he's chayiv to matzah. Another pasuk to teach you by someone who's tamei that he's chayiv in matzah. Okay, I'm gonna stop over here. And the bottom of Chavches on the base. This is a very new piece. Have a good night.